Are you ready, Christina? Yes? Okay. Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call tonight's council meeting to order. It is 6 p.m., and I'd like to start by reading the following. If you would like to provide public comments at tonight's City Council meeting in another language other than English, please visit the City Clerk to fill out a speaker card. To ensure a smooth and orderly transition, we will order comments from non-English public speakers at the end. Place them in order, is what that means, as the City Clerk will need time to set up our interpretation service for translating. Thank you for your cooperation. Tonight's meeting will be translated into Spanish via Wordly, a real-time app to translate English into Spanish. To access the translation services, please scan the QR code on the TV screens. I'm not seeing it yet. And also on the agenda. Click Attend, and this will take you to the transcription page. To change the language, click the language button in the upper right-hand corner. Over 30 languages are available to choose from, Spanish being one of them. The service will automatically begin transcribing the meeting audio in your chosen language. If you prefer to listen to the translation, click the 3 dots in the upper right-hand corner and select Voice. All right, with that, we move to the Pledge of Allegiance to be led by Councilmember Tovar.
Join us. Ready? Begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We don't have an invocation tonight, so no. Yes, you can all be seated. All right. City Clerk's report on posting the agenda and roll call.
Tonight's agenda was posted on Thursday, April 13 at 5:06 p.m. Councilmember Armendariz?
Present.
Councilmember Bracco?
Here.
Councilmember Klein?
Here.
Councilmember Hilton?
Here.
Councilmember Marks?
Here.
Councilmember Tovar?
Here.
And Mayor Blinkley.
Here. All right, that brings us to orders of the day. We have none. Employee introductions. We have one. Police Chief Espinoza has a new employee to introduce.
Madam Mayor, members of council and the public, I'm very happy to introduce our newest addition, Savannah Hartman, who was hired on April 10th as a public safety communicator trainee. She happens to be at the Dispatch Academy, actually, this week. Savannah grew up in Morgan Hill and attended Morgan Hill High Schools and Gavilan College. From there, she transferred to William Penn University in Iowa, where she earned 2 bachelor's degrees, one in psychology and one in human services. She worked within the mental health field as a treatment counselor at an inpatient psychiatric facility for kids. She's also worked as an emergency services specialist at a youth shelter in Iowa. When she moved back to California, she worked as a human trafficking case manager and then most recently as a resource specialist, helping create programs for individuals with developmental disabilities. She comes from a very tight-knit family. Her grandparents both lived across the street from each other, and her aunt and her family lived down the streets from them growing up, where she grew up. She has one younger sister who made her first time on TV last year, and your nephew's name is Aiden. In her free time, she enjoys snowboarding during the winter and wake surfing during the summer. She grew up camping, so anything by or on the lake during the summer is her happy place. She also played college volleyball and still enjoys the game, even though her shoulders do not. She also sings in a band out of Hollister and has been singing since she was a little girl. Please help me welcome Savannah Hartman.
It's nice to meet everybody. I'm really excited to work for the city of Gilroy and to continue to serve and help the public. Thank you.
Thank you and welcome. All right, under ceremonial items, we have none. Presentations to the council. Do we have any speakers wishing to speak on items not on tonight's agenda?
Yes, Madam Mayor. We have 2 speakers. First is Ron Kirkish, followed by James Pearson.
Okay, thank you. If your name was called, please come to the front row. Right, and go ahead.
Good evening, Mayor, Council, community.
I have two issues I'd like to speak about tonight. These are issues that were in the news that I think do apply to an interest in our community. One is the designing the electricity rates for PG&E. I think I sent you all stuff, but I think that the community might not be aware that PG&E and two other of their cohorts want to realign their rate schedule so that people who are not so wealthy pay less than those who are wealthy. On top of that, they add a usage fee too. And this is a article in the California Globe. Well, since it's the California Globe, the headline is California going full commie, designing electricity rates for an equitable energy transition. So it's very controversial. I think you'll find that we'll be hearing more about that in the future. The second one is earlier today, the Federal Court of Appeals, U.S. Circuit Court, ruled unanimously that the city of Berkeley was breaking the law, unconstitutional, when they banned natural gas hookups for new construction. And basically, it was the restaurants that brought the suit. But when you read the paper, and I think our city attorney may or may not agree with me, but the issue is that it applies to all new construction, not just for restaurants. So in other words, those cities like Morgan Hill, San Jose, that adopted an ordinance to ban natural gas hookups for their new construction are not in compliance with the law right now. Thankfully, last year when we had this before us, we all voted, the majority voted no, so we don't have to worry about it. We're in compliance. But it's something to consider that we did good. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker.
Madam Mayor, honored council, my name is James Pearson, and I'm here to praise a couple of your departments in the city and the staff. One is the finance department. I'm an original board member of the Library Bond Committee, and in 2019 we were getting ready to reconstitute the committee and go through the final motions and return the money to the taxpayers, and COVID hit. Didn't happen. And I called the finance department this last week, and Harjot Singh, the finance director, answered the phone and assured me that they were working on it and that we would do that this year, barring another pandemic or something else. The second is I want to praise the permitting department for adopting the Solar Plus permit system, which streamlines the permitting of rooftop solar. If that's all you're doing is putting rooftop solar on your home or building, it's a quick and easy process now. They did it in 3 days, and they were early enough adopters that they are in line for a grant they applied for to cover the costs. So, thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any other speakers?
No, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you. So moving on to reports of council members. Councilmember Bracco. Councilmember Armendariz.
No report.
Councilmember Marks.
No report.
Councilmember Hilton.
Thank you. From Silicon Valley Clean Energy, at the April Board of Directors meeting, we authorized a contract for biomass energy to help the agency meet its renewable energy and reliability requirements, as well as a contract with a hybrid natural gas peaker plant paired with battery storage to help meet the agency's regulatory procurement obligations in a cost-effective way, and voted to increase an all-electric rate discount to incentivize a shift in customers' use electricity when it is cleanest and cheapest. SVCE's primary interest from the Rio Bravo biomass project is to help meet its renewable goals, as well as providing valuable renewable assets capacity in summer months. The fuel source at the facility is renewable biomass, agricultural pruning, and urban wood. Much of the material has historically been open burned or landfilled, resulting in atmospheric pollution, waste of landfill space, and underutilization of our renewable resources. The technology used at the facility allows for a more complete and efficient burn of the biomass, thus air pollutants are dramatically reduced. The facility to operate consistently throughout the year, each hour of the day, supplying renewable energy when it is needed. Overall, it provides a complete offering of economic renewable energy capacity, and given the term of the contract, a bridge into SVCE's long-term goals of providing 100% clean energy from technologies such as solar, wind, and geothermal. From the Valley Transportation Policy Advisory Committee, this Saturday, April 22nd, in celebration of Earth Day, VTA will be offering free rides all day. The Gilroy Transit Center has 30 long-term bike parking lockers that will be changed out to modern e-lockers that don't require a key to use. I wanted to give some stats too on ridership from bus routes that have access to in Gilroy, that we have access to in Gilroy. These daily boarding numbers are from November to December of 2022. The Rapid 568 had 646 boardings. Express 121 had 40 boardings. The Frequent 68 had 3,600 boardings. Our local routes, the route number 84 had 67 boardings. Route 85 had 92 boardings. And Route 86 had 71 boardings. And lastly, my office will be at the Gilroy Transit Center on May 18th, Bike to Work Day. Please pledge ahead of time online. There's a competition right now between cities to get a sought-after bike bag, some blueberry coffee cake, hot coffee, and a chance to win a prize bag from the Silicon Valley Bicycle Coalition random drawings. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Klein.
Yeah, I just want to give a shout out to the Gilroy Garlic Festival Association. On Saturday, they had a fundraiser selling garlic bread and sold over 400 loaves at the Veterans Hall, and they also presented a check to the Veterans Hall of $5,000 for going towards their kitchen remodel. So it was a great day and just a lot of positive things happening. So.
Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. A couple things. I want to thank all the folks that were responsible and involved in last weekend. We had the cleanup efforts in downtown. I know Mr. Orth and the GDBA had a lot to do with that, and I appreciate all the great work you guys did. We cleaned up quite a bit of garbage out in downtown, and it was great to see so many people volunteering. So I want to thank everybody that was involved, the GDBA, the Rotary, and all the community members that were out there helping out. Next, I also want to thank everyone involved with the Poppy Jasper International Film Festival, which is still going on, but the mayor and I had the privilege of presenting a proclamation to a world-renowned artist by the name of Kat Dyson, who's played with many different bands. And, you know, it was a great event at Coppels, and thank you, Coppels, for treating everybody with respect. And I think everybody that walked out of there was appreciative of what a great venue you guys have, and so thank you very much. That's it.
Thank you. Okay, on April 6th, I attended the VTA board meeting, and the two things I want to mention from there are resolutions of necessity continue, and that means to acquire below-ground rights to tunnel from Berryessa to Santa Clara for BART to go underground. That requires some eminent domain and some purchase of land, even though it is below ground, because it does affect what then can go above ground in those spaces. And then also the need to convert an empty warehouse in San Jose into a temporary parking garage in order to mitigate the parking impacts caused by the BART Phase 2 construction. So this is going to be a long haul, but BART Phase 2 is going to continue on to Santa Clara. We had a SCRAW board meeting on April 5th. SCRAW is our South County Regional Wastewater Treatment Plant, so it's where our sewage and wastewater is all treated south of town, the facility that we share with the city of Morgan Hill. And what I want to report there is, because we haven't had a SCRAW meeting in a long time, is an $86 million expansion that isn't actually new news, but I think we might forget that this is in the works, and it is going to increase capacity of what could be treated at that plant by 30%. So going from 8.5 million gallons per day to 11 million gallons per day, and that equates for the city of Gilroy alone to a population, to accommodating a population of about 108,000 people. So just so everybody is aware of all that. Then we had the Legislative Summit last Friday. That's where our representatives from our Congresswoman, Zoe Lofgren, to our State Senator, John Laird, and down. And we all present, and it's a really nice way to see us all trying to work together. I also want to mention that I have met, and I'm going to be meeting monthly with Dr. Avila of Gavilan College and board member Rachel Perez, because we're trying to make sure that relationship is something that we communicate better on. There are lots of things going on at Gav and with the city that we want to move towards. And as far as garlic bread goes, I had the pleasure of purchasing garlic bread and then bringing it over to the District Theater to share with the panel that was there for the film festival, and that was fun to show them our garlic bread. And lastly, because I have to be here and I cannot be in Boston, my son ran the Boston Marathon this morning, and so I have to tell everyone, 2 hours, 38 minutes. He's 26 years old. Very proud of him. Thanks. Okay, on to item 5, council correspondence. I think we all saw in our packets 5.1. Item 6, future council-initiated items. I'm looking down. Okay, item 7 is the consent calendar. Anything to pull? Then I'll go to public comment. Any public comment on consent?
There's no public comment.
Move for approval.
Okay. Have a motion to approve the consent calendar by Councilmember Tovar. I'll second it. Okay. Do we have a motion and a second for the consent calendar?
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay. If it's okay for me to second, that can hold. Otherwise, Councilmember
okay.
Mark seconded.
It doesn't matter.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Yeah. Roll call vote.
All right. Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blankley?
Yes. All right. That passed unanimously. Under bids and proposals, we have none. Under public hearings, 9.1. Public hearing to establish a list of properties subject to the weed abatement program and adoption of a resolution authorizing the fire chief to abate the nuisance arising out of weeds growing and refuse accumulating upon property in the city of Gilroy pursuant to section 12.51 of the Gilroy Code. Chief Wyatt, give us the report.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and Honorable Council. Tonight's agenda covers the second step of the annual weed abatement program. Previously, on February 23rd of this year, Council adopted Resolution 2023-08 declaring weeds and refuse as a public nuisance. Along with that agenda item were the list of properties with a history of noncompliance for weed abatement. The annual weed abatement process complies with both the city code and the state health and safety code, which require, prior to authorizing the abatement of a lot, the city hold a public hearing of the subject properties. This meeting not only authorizes the fire chief to abate nuisances such as the weeds and refuse, but also allows property owners to request that their property be removed from the list. All subject property owners identified on the commencement list received a public hearing notice, weed abatement instructions, and information on the fee and costs. Property owners were also informed that the weed abatement deadline is May 15th of this year. Any property owners which are present at tonight's meeting may request to have their property removed from the list by providing an explanation for why the property should be removed. The request will be taken under consideration by the Gilroy Fire Department, the Santa Clara Weed Abatement Program, and the City Council. If anyone is present, then please request to speak at this time. If there are no questions, we have Deputy Fire Marshal Jonathan Crick and Weed Abatement Program Manager Mo Cumry available. And last but not least, there you are. Any additional comments?
Cut the weeds.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, so any questions of council? Yes, Councilmember Armendariz.
Chief, is there a process outside of this meeting or after this hearing for someone to request to be removed?
For what to be removed?
For a property owner to request themselves removed from the list. Is there a process outside of this?
They can contact the. Oh, there you go.
If you're speaking, please use the microphone.
Yes, my name is Mo Cumry. I'm the manager of the Weed Abatement Program for Santa Clara County. We, throughout the season and throughout the year, take calls and emails from property owners who wish to be removed from the program or have concerns, and allow them to give us that information. If there's grounds for removal, we will remove them.
And does the county send someone out to inspect to make sure that they have cut their weeds?
We will inspect all the properties that remain on the list after the May 15th deadline to verify that they've been abated. And we will inspect again later in the season to ensure that they remain abated until the end of October.
Great. And if there is a senior or someone with a physical handicap that can't abate their own weeds, is there assistance or a program that could assist them?
We don't have a program, but the Santa Clara County Fire Safe Council has a program in which they can help those who are unable to afford or physically to perform the abatement.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Okay, seeing no other questions of council members, I'd like to open the public hearing at 6:20 p.m. and ask if we have any speakers.
We don't have any speakers, Madam Mayor.
Okay, then closing the public hearing at 6:20 p.m. and coming back to council for possible action.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay.
Second.
Motion moved by Councilmember Bracco and seconded by Councilmember Armendariz to approve a resolution to authorize the fire chief to abate the nuisance. Okay.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blinkley.
Yes, and that passes unanimously. Moving on to item 10, unfinished business, approval of the Santa Teresa Interim Fire Station alternate location at Christmas Hill Park. Chief Wyatt again.
Yes, I'm back again, but proud to be here. Okay, so approval of the alternate location, the Santa Teresa Interim Fire Station. Recommendation is to approve an alternate location of the Santa Teresa Interim Fire Station located at the ranch side, or on the ranch side, of Christmas Hill Park in the Santa Teresa Fire Response District. Our current site that we had council approved back on July 5th of last year is the 10th Street and Deanza Place site. However, we found that there were disadvantages, and I'll go through those rather quickly. There's no utilities readily available, and the wait time, in spite of numerous requests through PG or to PG&E, still would be extensive. Construction delays could extend into the summer of next year, 2024. And also, there would be still, even at the location that we selected, longer response times into the city's districts, other cities' fire districts. Let me go through the advantages of the proposed site or alternative site. The utilities are readily available. It looks familiar to you because it's right next to the teak. But there's no need for PG&E, thus no wait time. Can be operational this year. There's better response times into the Grassland, Hecker Pass, West Glen Loma, and Eagle Ridge neighborhoods because of its proximity. Improved response times into other city districts. We know this based on our times that we've responded into the center core of the city, and more often than not, we've actually beat some of the other units that are first due. Once fully funded, no additional, well, it's actually fully funded, no additional or added costs to the move. Costs previously approved were $200,000 for the modular building, $240,000 for the site work, $104,000 for the station alert system and install, for a total of $549,000. Again, this was all previously approved by council, and no additional costs will be incurred by the switch. Projected construction timeline and public outreach. We're looking at the modular trailer. Right now, the contract is going through the process, and they're going to be beginning the build of it within the next 2 or 3 weeks. That means that the trailer will be ready in about 2 months. Site improvement, once approved, we can start moving ahead now that the rainy season has stopped, and we anticipate that will be about a 2 to 3 month time to develop it. And then project move-in, we're looking at October of this year. Public outreach, we're looking at 2 weeks prior to the construction activities to include letters to the neighbors just literally right next door to where the property is located. Notification of Gilroy Unified School District, since it does affect them, and their pickup of some of the children on that near the station site, and then of course messaging on the city website, Express, Email Express, Nextdoor, and social media. In summary, the current 10th Street De Anza site is delayed until next summer of 2024. The alternative site at Christmas Hill already has utility infrastructure, no need for PG&E, and I emphasize that. Alternative site is fully funded, no additional or added costs by switching sites. The alternative site will provide quicker response time into several Santa Teresa Fire District neighborhoods and adjacent city districts. And then the alternative site would be operational by October of 2023. And at this point, any questions?
Thank you, Chief. All right, council members, any questions? Councilmember Bracco.
I have a question for Jimmy. If we were to get the grant for the bridge, would it have any effect on this?
It wouldn't have any effect if we go ahead and get council approval to move the temporary station over to Christmas Hill Park. And it also would create a little bit of a problem for us if we did get the grant, because we knew that we were going to have to move the station anyway. This eliminates all those issues. It's a property we own. It's a property we have electricity to. No problem with the bridge. In the end, it's a better solution for us.
And we're not going to move the station until the new station is built, correct?
Yeah, this is the permanent temporary station.
Thank you.
You think you're confused. All right, Councilmember Marks.
Yes, Chief. How many firefighters do we have to hire to complete this station, to get it up to full capacity?
So that's actually a great question. I'm excited to tell you that we're almost there. We have hired a total of 36 firefighters, so we needed 2 additional ones. We just got through 2 weeks ago with interview process, and we have 4 on the list. So with that, my hope is that in a very short time, we're going to have 38 firefighters to staff the Santa Teresa station.
Perfect.
Well,
So then-
not just the Santa Teresa station.
So then when the modular unit is up and running and it has electrical, everyone moves in and we're up and running, fully staffed, correct?
We will be, assuming that everyone remains healthy, yes,
Right.
we'll be fully staffed.
All right, great. Thank you.
Councilmember Hilton.
Chief, so when you say fully staffed, you mean it's not going to be the Type 6 anymore? It's going to be a Type 1 fire engine with 3 personnel on it 24 hours a day?
Right. So let me say how we fully staff. So as we train our firefighters, we still have 4 in training right now. They won't become available until one will become available in July. The other 3 will become available in September of this year. So with those people coming in and the workforce remaining healthy, we should be moving towards 2.0 staffing of the Santa Teresa within probably the next 30 days. Not all 3 shifts, though. We're not quite there yet. And so we're looking at incrementally bringing up 3.0 staffing as we get the firefighters coming in. But again, I have to emphasize that's assuming that the workforce, the current workforce remains healthy, and that we don't lose anybody else to retirements. I am losing 2 division chiefs. They don't work on the engines, so that they won't affect that. But it doesn't mean that there couldn't be promotions internally that would still cause us to not quite meet our 38 full number. in order to staff it. So I'm couching that with what could happen and what we are working towards making it happen.
So the 2O staffing will still be on the response rig that they're using today?
Correct.
It won't be a fire engine?
It won't be a full fire engine, not till probably, well, I'll just say this. I'm already looking at least one shift being able to provide trio staffing, but that, again, won't happen for another 30 days, and then it will probably be around September, October before we get trio staffing.
Okay. And my last question, I saw in your staff report that you were able to get those speed bumps removed, so
yes.
I know that's going to speed your time up. Are you still able to access out the back?
Yes.
Okay, and that as in there's no like gates there that impede your process or anything because you're using those trails?
No, you're referring to the bike trail that actually is also a emergency response for us. We've got in the plans to widen it with gravel so that it could handle the weight of a Type 1. That way, if we have pedestrians who are walking along there, we can pull over to the side and safely get past them.
Thank you.
All right, seeing no other council member questions, I'm going to go to public comment.
We have no public comment.
Okay, closing public comment.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would like to make a motion for approval of the Santa Teresa Fire Station alternate location at Christmas Hill Park.
All right.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Councilmember Tovar and seconded by Councilmember Marks to approve.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blinkley?
Yes, that passed unanimously. All right, moving on to new business. 11.1, authorize the city administrator to enter into a sole source purchasing agreement with Landco Industries for the replacement of a public safety rescue vehicle for $360,497. Chief Pedro Espinoza will give us this report.
Madam Mayor, Captain Luke Powell, our field operations commander, will be presenting on behalf of the police department.
Very good.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. I'm here tonight to request authorization to replace our shared public safety rescue vehicle. A public safety rescue vehicle is a vehicle with ballistic protection that provides an environment that minimizes officers' exposure to additional risk while responding to critical incidents and performing other hazardous duties, such as rescuing victims during acts of violence like active shooter or hostage situations, transporting fire and medical personnel into active crime scenes to render medical aid, allowing officers to maintain proximity in high-risk situations and afford additional protection, to safely make visual observations, attempt de-escalation, and conduct crisis negotiation during incidents involving armed, barricaded subjects. And lastly, to safely deliver equipment and supplies and other needed resources during high-risk operations. Let me begin with a brief history of how and when we acquired our current public safety rescue vehicle. In 2007, the Gilroy Police Department submitted a grant application through FEMA and Homeland Security for the funding to purchase a rescue vehicle from Lenco Armored Vehicles in the amount of $250,000. The following year, in 2008, the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office submitted a grant application through the Urban Areas Security Initiative, or UASI, for a chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear, and high-yield explosive, or CBRNE, rescue vehicle from Lenco Armored Vehicles in the amount of $310,000. In 2010, UASI agreed to combine the two grant applications and fund the Sheriff's Office grant with the following stipulations. The rescue vehicle would be a mutual aid resource shared by the Sheriff's Office, Morgan Hill Police Department, and the Gilroy Police Department. The rescue vehicle would be stored in South Santa Clara County to reduce response times of this vital life-saving piece of equipment. At the time, all three agencies agreed to these stipulations, and settled to store the rescue vehicle at Gilroy Police Department. And the Sheriff's Office would be the grant manager, ensuring compliance with grant requirements. Gilroy PD was selected as the primary storage facility because it was located in South Santa Clara County. The rescue vehicle could be stored indoors, and Gilroy PD was staffed 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, making access quicker, resulting in reduced response times. The City of Gilroy also agreed to provide preventative maintenance on the rescue vehicle. In 2011, the Sheriff's Office, Morgan Hill Police Department, and Gilroy PD took possession of the shared rescue vehicle. For 10 years, this rescue vehicle was stored at Gilroy PD, and the City of Gilroy Fleet Department performed its regular maintenance. In September 2021, Governor Newsom signed Assembly Bill 481, which required law enforcement agencies to adopt a military equipment use policy. Assembly Bill 481 mandated more stringent control over the use of military equipment, such as the grant-funded shared rescue vehicle. Because the Sheriff's Office was the grant manager for the rescue vehicle, they used Assembly Bill 481 to justify permanently relocating the rescue vehicle out of Gilroy and out of South Santa Clara County. Over the preceding months, the Sheriff's Office staff established a strict checkout procedure before any other agency could use the rescue vehicle. I've detailed this checkout procedure in your staff report, but will simply state tonight that the checkout process can take anywhere from 1 to 3 hours, depending on the responsiveness of their administration, the availability of the rescue vehicle, their employees' availability to meet us at the storage facility, traffic conditions to and from San Jose. Although I understand the Sheriff's Office need to implement such a process, it delays and prolongs our ability to form a tactical response. This process is a drain on our resources. It reduces the time our officers are on the streets, increases our overtime expense, and increases the response time of a necessary piece of vital equipment to all of South Santa Clara County. On average, we utilize the shared rescue vehicle for 12 real-world deployments and 24 days of training annually. In addition to the lengthy checkout process, the Sheriff's Office has suspended the use of the rescue vehicle at community and public engagement events like Coffee with a Cop, Ice Cream with a Cop, National Night Out, job fairs, and school and retirement facility demonstrations. We understand these events are not critical, but they are excellent opportunities for community members to engage our officers and ask them questions about their job and garner a better understanding of what equipment we have and how it is used in our community. In your staff report, I have detailed 8 incidents within the past 2 years when deployment of the rescue vehicle was critically needed but unavailable. The use of the rescue vehicle during these incidents would have minimized our officers' and community's exposure to additional risk, afforded secure close proximity tactical observations, increased time to formulate de-escalation plans, and a safe mobile platform to apprehend armed suspects. I will not detail those events again tonight, but since completing the staff report, there have been 2 additional incidents that again stress the critical need for a rescue vehicle here in Gilroy and dedicated to South Santa Clara County. In the first event, a longtime Gilroy resident living just outside the city limits shot at sheriff's deputies from inside his residence. The Sheriff's Office deployed the rescue vehicle we share with them and requested assistance from additional agencies with rescue vehicles. Because no other South County agency has their own rescue vehicle, rescue vehicles were sent from San Jose and Campbell. Due to the distance these vehicles had to come from, it took over 2 hours before a secure inner perimeter was established. All the while, the suspect continued to fire a gun out of the residence. Attempts to negotiate with the suspect and de-escalate the situation went on for hours, and 2 of the rescue vehicles were struck multiple times by bullets fired by the suspect. Luckily, the rescue vehicle performed its intended purpose, and no officers were injured, no officers inside the rescue vehicle were injured. It is important to note that because the officers were secured in a rescue vehicle with ballistic protection, their lives were not in imminent danger. They did not feel like they had to return fire to preserve their lives. The outcome may have been drastically different if the rescue vehicles were not available for this event. The second event happened earlier this month and involved a subject who was wanted for attempted murder. Gilroy PD detectives located the wanted individual at a residence in Gilroy, and the use of the shared rescue vehicles was requested from the sheriff's office. It took 5 hours to get a response from the sheriff's office, and an additional hour before the rescue vehicle was in Gilroy. Once the rescue vehicle was in Gilroy, the attempted murder suspect was taken into custody within 30 minutes. This incident is a classic example of how a rescue vehicle's delay is a drain on Gilroy's resources. An incident that could have resolved in 30 minutes took over 6 hours and tied up public safety resources and diminished our ability to serve our community in an efficient manner. Currently, the Gilroy Police Department shares a 12-year-old rescue vehicle with the Santa Clara County Sheriff's Office and the Morgan Hill Police Department. I've tried to express this vital resources availability is becoming increasingly limited, and its use is restricted by the grant it was funded by and the Sheriff's Office staff. Today, I'm requesting authorization to replace our grant-funded shared rescue vehicle with one that would be owned and maintained by the City of Gilroy and stored at the Gilroy Police Department. This would afford the City of Gilroy to impose our own restrictions on this vehicle, its usage, and still be a resource for other South Santa Clara County agencies like Gilroy Fire Department and the Morgan Hill Police Department. Our goal is to keep our officers safe and conclude critical incidents or acts of violence with the least amount of force necessary. A Gilroy-owned rescue vehicle would improve our chances of attaining that goal. Currently, the Gilroy Police Department and the Morgan Hill Police Department share and maintain a mobile command vehicle, or MCV, which Morgan Hill acquired through a grant. Gilroy PD and the Morgan Hill Police Department maintain an excellent working relationship, and we have not had any conflict with sharing this resource. We are still exploring the possibility of the rescue vehicle of being a shared resource, but I do not foresee this being a conflict between these two agencies. The Linco Bearcat is a rescue vehicle specifically designed for public safety with ballistic protection to enhance officer and citizen safety during high-risk search warrants, hostage situations, armed barricaded subjects, active shooter incidents, and other dangerous critical incidents. The Linco Bearcat is the same brand of armored rescue vehicle currently utilized by the Gilroy Police Department in all surrounding municipalities and agencies. The standardization of rescue vehicles in our county allows for additional personnel from neighboring law enforcement agencies to have the necessary knowledge of the rescue vehicle's operation and capabilities. Purchasing the same rescue vehicle brand eliminates the need for additional training and the associated costs of maintaining a different type of vehicle. The Linco Bearcat is based on a Ford F-550 Super Duty chassis and is the only rescue vehicle on the market with a 131-inch wheelbase, thus allowing a compact vehicle to have a tighter turning radius. The smaller turning radius allows the user to navigate city streets and traffic with greater maneuverability. We have optioned the new Linco Bearcat to come with the following features: a V8 turbo diesel engine, four-wheel drive, bench seating for 12, run flat tires, 7-inch vertical gun ports, backup camera, hydraulic ram, gas injector unit, roof-mounted spotlight, recovery rope, armored oil pan, ballistic skip round shield, two-way intercom system, and internal trauma lighting. Gilroy PD is committed to using the best practices and contemporary law enforcement equipment to enhance our ability to provide the highest level of public safety to our community. Rescue vehicles have been continued have been and continue to be employed by the Gilroy Police Department and law enforcement agencies across the country to enhance the safety of the community and public safety members. These vital pieces of equipment provide peace officers with the ability to safely de-escalate and resolve volatile situations and critical incidents that could potentially become lethal force encounters. Our current policies provide our officers with guidelines for using and maintaining a rescue vehicle, and the Linco Bearcat is already listed in our annual equipment inventory report to City Council. Replacement of our rescue vehicle is critical to Gilroy PD's mission and will continue to be strictly regulated through internal processes and oversight. Gilroy PD's Policy 708 is our equipment use policy and outlines each item identified in Government Code Section 770 that the city currently owns. Policy 708 includes the specifics of each item, its intended use, and its cost. Policy 708 protects the public's welfare, safety, civil rights, and civil liabilities. Policy 708 ensures safeguards, including transparency, oversight, and accountability measures. Staff researched and evaluated potential rescue vehicle options and found all rescue vehicles currently used by law enforcement agencies in Santa Clara County are the Linco Bearcat. Staff is familiar with and has 12 years of experience in training with the Linco Bearcat. If all agencies in the county continue to use the Linco Bearcat, this would allow them for more seamless cross-training between agencies and safer deployments as personnel are familiar with the operation of this vehicle platform. It is staff's belief that there is no reasonable alternative to the Linco Bearcat. Staff has not discovered alternate products that can achieve the same objectives or safety. The recommended replacement or purchase price of this vehicle is in the amount not exceeding $360,497.18. Will be made from the police department's federal asset seizure funds in the amount of $150,000 and fiscal year 2022-23 salary savings in the amount of $210,497.18. Sufficient funds exist in the department's federal asset seizure fund and the operational budget to support the recommended purchase. City Purchasing Policy 4.8 purchases exempt from competitive bidding provides that competitive bidding shall not apply to single or sole source goods or services. The Linco Bearcat is the Linco is the sole source provider of the Linco Bearcat. Additionally, General Services Administration, or GSA, is the federal government's purchasing agent, connecting federal purchasers with the most cost-effective and highest quality commercial products and services. GSA Advantage sources different government contracts that are not competitively bid, but have substantial cost savings. GSA Advantage enables cities to save 5% on the purchase of the Linco Bearcat compared to the open market price. I know that took a while. Yeah. Sorry. At this time, I'd like to field any questions regarding the replacement of the public safety rescue vehicle.
Thank you, Cap. Thank you for that report. Thank you for the detail in the staff report. Because this piece of equipment was taken from us by because of AB 481, I remember it coming before this council where we had to address that and any equipment and what our policy is for any equipment to which AB 481 applied. So can you tell us a little bit before I get into questions from the council whether or not we already, what is our policy? Does the City of Gilroy have a policy that we can, that's already in place that addresses what we need to address because of AB 481 so that we can have this piece of equipment?
Yes. So last year, May of 2022, I provided you, the council, with the military equipment use policy, which we adopted last year. And then every year in May, I will have to come back to you and provide you an update on that. So anytime we get new equipment, the cost of that equipment and what it will be used for will be reported to you every year going forward.
Okay.
Last year's report included the Bearcat that we share with the Sheriff's Department, and that will be consistent this year, but going forward in May of 2024, if you approve this purchase, the new Bearcat will appear on that annual.
Okay, so we have a policy as to when we would and would not use such a piece of equipment.
Yes, we did.
Perfect. Okay, Councilmember Hilton.
Thank you. Captain, it's okay that you take that long because you always do a good job on closing the loop there. I mean, you lay it out. It's very convincing. As a firefighter, it's always frustrating to have a piece of equipment that you know that works, but you can't get it in time, or it's not yours, you don't have enough money or whatever to get it. So good job on that. My one question is, and I think you briefly talked about it, but is there a specific standard operating procedure just for the Bearcat that will be in place? Because I see other cities do that, and you even mentioned that too, that other cities have best practices and stuff, and maybe even up to including if you want to go to a public event or those type of non-emergency settings, that the chief would be the one to say whether that's okay or not.
Yes. So chief would have ultimate decision on when it would be used and when it could not be used. But the use of the Bearcat is also covered under our use of force policy, and then our vehicle and equipment use policy, and the military equipment use policy. So we have 3 different policies that restrict us on when we can and cannot use the Bearcat.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor and Captain. Yeah, great job. I mean, I always enjoy your presentations because you're very detailed, and I appreciate this, even though some people may see the cost as being extremely high. But I appreciate this because you're putting public safety as a priority, so I appreciate that, and I'll be supporting this. Just a question I have in regards to sort of looking at the usage of this vehicle. What do you anticipate will be the lifespan of the vehicle?
So it's going to be, our current one we have is 12 years old.
Okay.
And it's now starting to show its wear, but it's not done. So if we were to continue to share the cost of maintaining the current Bearcat, it needs new windows. The windows, because they're ballistic resistant, have lamination layers. They're starting to delaminate. You can't see through the windows anymore, so those would need to be replaced. Okay. But we're looking at a minimum of 12 years with this vehicle. And we will be keeping it indoors, so it's going to extend the life even longer. Diesel engine is going to be more reliable and last longer than a gas engine as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Great. Councilmember Armendariz.
Thank you. What would happen to our access to the previous vehicle? Will we still be in contract with, as part of the grant with the other 2 agencies?
Definitely. Good question. It would still be available to us because with the grant, the way the grant was written, it's still available to the 3 agencies that were written into the grant.
Through what year?
The 3 agencies that were written into the grant.
No, I'm sorry. Through what year?
Oh, for the life of the vehicle.
For the life of the vehicle.
I didn't understand that.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Bracco.
Since we got a grant with the county and Morgan Hill for the Bearcat, the shared one, can we get some money from the county for taking it away from us?
To my knowledge, no. So it was a grant funded through the state. The recipient of the grant was the county. When it arrived, it was a gentleman's agreement between the 3 agencies. So it was signed with a handshake, and there was no written agreement documenting how this would actually play out. So as far as us getting money for another Bearcat through the county, I do not see that happening.
Okay. Thank you.
Nice thought, though. Yeah. Okay. I'd like to go to public comment if we have any speakers.
Yes, Madam Mayor. We have one, Ron Kirkish.
Hello again, Mayor, Council, and thank you, Chief Espinoza and Captain. From the story that the Captain told us alone, this is $360,000 well spent. In a previous engagement, the officers were able to shelter themselves in the vehicle and save their lives. But not only that, but they didn't have to take the life of the person who was probably going through a mental breakdown. So to me, it's a no-brainer. This is $360,000 that I think we should seriously consider spending for the safety of our officers and the safety of our community, even those who are perpetrating the crime. Thank you.
Thank you. No other public speakers?
None at this time.
All right. Closing public comment. And go ahead.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to authorize the city to enter into a purchasing agreement for the replacement of a safety rescue vehicle for $360,497.
Thank you. And can we do this in one motion and adopt the resolution? Would you like to do that too? Put both and adopt the resolution in one motion? Okay.
Thank you.
So, all right, made by Councilmember Tovar, seconded by Councilmember Bracco.
Councilmember Armendariz?
Yes.
Councilmember Bracco?
Yes.
Councilmember Klein?
Yes.
Councilmember Hilton?
Aye.
Councilmember Marks?
Yes.
Councilmember Tovar?
Yes.
And Mayor Blinkley.
Yes, that passed unanimously. Okay, moving on to 11.2. Receive report and provide direction on mobile vending and sidewalk vending rules and requirements. And Sharon Goey, or maybe not, John Biggs, is going to give this report.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor and members of City Council. John Biggs with the Community Development Department, providing a little bit of assistance to the staff members in Community Development. We have for you this evening some information regarding sidewalk vending and mobile vending, our existing rules and regulations that we have in the current Gilroy Municipal Code, and some state legislation that has been adopted in the last few years. Currently, we have Chapter 16A, which covers mobile vending. Mobile vending is a very broad topic, and it covers everything from vendors on sidewalks to public streets to public parks, plus vendors on private property. The state legislation, SB 946, has changed the rules for sidewalk vendors. And I'll use the term sidewalk vendors very specifically because it refers to a very specific category of mobile vendors. Those are vendors, sidewalk vendors are vendors that operate from or sell goods and foods from sidewalks, public paths, public parkways, and only in those locations where mobile vendors provide services to all other locations throughout the city. In addition to SB 946, which decriminalized, which decriminalized sidewalk vending, the state also adopted SB 972, which is really the attempt to address health concerns and health permitting requirements for sidewalk vendors. There were some very onerous requirements in terms of health permitting from the county health requirements of the various counties in California. And SB 72 is supposed to make for a smoother process, an easier process for sidewalk vendors to get their health permits. Given SB 946, there are quite a few things that a city can do, but there's also quite a few things that a city cannot do. One thing that the city can do is limit the hours of operation. However, those hours of operation limitations only apply and cannot be more restrictive than the operations or the business hours for other like businesses within an area where mobile vendors or sidewalk vendors can operate. The city
Could you repeat that? I'm sorry. It's hard to hear. If you could repeat that last
Oh, sure.
point.
Get a little closer to the microphone here.
Thank you.
The city can limit the hours of operation, but it can't limit them any more restrictive than the hours of operation for other businesses that are operating within the city or in a given area. We can prohibit sidewalk vendors in residential neighborhoods, except for mobile vendors. The prohibition on the residential neighborhoods is just for stationary sidewalk vendors. A mobile vendor, someone who has a cart and is going through the neighborhoods, can still operate within the residential zone districts. Sidewalk vending can be prohibited near farmers markets, swap meets, and permitted special events to limit competition between those types of events and sidewalk vendors. And the city can apply a distance between these types of events and where sidewalk vendors can operate. They can be required that sanitary standards be met, and that's part of the health permitting process. They can also require compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act, and the city, per SB 946, can require that a sidewalk vendor get a permit or a license to operate within the city. What a city cannot do.
Sorry.
Sure.
Yeah, before we jump into this, can we go back to the other slide? I just have two questions. So it says when we look at, is that the first slide?
Yeah, I think he means what you can do.
Yeah, what we can.
I'm trying to
Oh, can't get there?
get this thing to
okay.
go back.
Thank you, Ty.
Slide number. Yeah, okay,
So,
go ahead.
when you say what the city can do, prohibit sidewalk vending near farmers markets, swap meets, and permitted special events, does this not include, say, nearby restaurants and other sort of?
It does not include those types of business activities, no.
Okay, and then you say require that sanitary standards be met. What exactly does that mean? Because
That's something that the city, or not the city, but the County of Santa Clara's Health Department is currently working on. SB 972 only became effective at the beginning of this calendar year. And so the county right now is working at developing a set of standards that they will say, here is what you need to comply in order to get a health permit. They have mentioned things in discussions with us, things such as making sure that waste is collected within a receptacle that can be deposited elsewhere. Greases and fats are collected so that they don't get left behind on public property or public streets. That there be wash sinks available if there is food cooking or food preparation available. We're not 100% certain at this stage what their requirements are going to be, but we're going to be working closely with them and we'll probably have more information to share with you if we bring back a code for the council to consider.
Because I asked that question because obviously, me personally, I'm trying to see how we can make this all work, but unless we're enforcing this and we're hiring somebody or additional, staff members to go out there and make sure this happens, then we really don't. We can't enforce it, right? I mean,
enforcement is a really curious dynamic to sidewalk vending. I think there would be an enforcement effort on the part of the city, plus an enforcement effort on the part of the county of Santa Clara.
Okay, thank you.
John, I have a question. Go back.
Just one second. I just want to ask John, are you okay not finishing your report and having council members ask questions, or are you okay with it?
I'm comfortable with having council members ask
Okay.
questions.
It's on the same slide that you were just on.
Okay, Councilmember Marks.
Go back to limit hours of operation. Did I understand you correctly when you said we could not limit the number of hours that might be shorter than another business operating by, so like if Tempo stays open until 2, then the vendors would get to stay open until 2, correct?
That's my understanding.
Even though they might be blocks away from Tempo?
Even though they could be blocks away from Tempo. I think it looks at the business operations within the city globally and takes a look at, what hours do food service organizations or businesses provide for their customers, and it would take a look at that and kind of use that as sort of the gauge that anyone if they wanted to ask a question or challenge our regulations would.
All right, thank you. That just clarifies it, because I was a little confused when you said that. Okay, thank you.
It mentions residential.
Just a minute. Okay.
Sorry, ma'am.
It's okay. Do you have a question?
I do.
Okay, I do too. So go ahead.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
It mentions residential districts and then also a special commercial district, right? If, later on in the presentation, if there was a special commercial zone, for example, a downtown commercial zone, where we set the policy for the entire zone, is that allowable, or is that can we make rules like that?
I guess it would be allowable. The difficulty is any rule or requirement that we place on mobile vendors needs to protect the public's health, life, and safety. So if we're not able to make that connection or nexus between that requirement, limiting it to, or limiting it from a certain specific zone district, then we would want to make sure that, whatever zone district we said these are not appropriate in, we'd have to make that health and safety link in there.
There was a third criteria, health?
Health, life, and safety.
Life and safety.
Public's health, life, and safety.
May I?
Yes.
Just to amplify on that answer, I think it would be difficult to set up a commercial zone that would regulate these sidewalk vendors. It's not specifically allowed in the state law, and it would be difficult to justify based on those factors. And the law is very clear. We can't base it on economic factors or how people feel about the vendors either. That's extremely clear in the state statute.
Okay, my question has to do with permit or license, because I thought it would be and.
It could be and I guess it should be more appropriately and/or.
Okay.
You could require a permit for the mobile vendors, but then still require that they obtain a business license.
Right. So like for me, my business, I have to have a business license. I pay a fee. It has to be renewed annually. I don't have a permit, though. What does the permit do that the license doesn't?
The business license is actually a tax on the business to generate revenue for the city and regulate the businesses. The permit is really a permit that regulates the type of use or activity. So if we were to go towards a permit program for sidewalk vendors, that would list the conditions and the restrictions that are placed on the sidewalk
Perfect.
vendors
That
and
would
make sure that they're complying with those.
Yes, since that would be the way that we would know what the, okay. Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. Sorry, and go back to my question because sort of thinking this through, obviously, I'm looking for a way to help protect our vendors, but also protect the community, but also just as important as both of those are local businesses who I, and I'm sure many of us have spoken to protect their businesses and help them thrive. When we look at what the city can do and sort of what we have listed in there, and it sort of goes in line with what Councilmember Armendariz mentioned, are we able to add to that, or is this sort of how it's set in stone? Again, I'm talking specifically.
I think when we're talking about adding to it, in the agenda report, we provided a number of potential conditions that we could apply to the permitting requirements for a sidewalk vendor. And I think when we get to that portion of the discussion, we can discuss whether or not that list is appropriate or if there's other things you'd like to have us go back and explore in a little more detail.
Okay, now Councilmember Hilton also has a
clarifying question about the enforcement part of it. So correct me if I'm wrong, but code enforcement within the city is based on complaints, right? We don't actively have code enforcement walking around looking for violations. So to actually have to hire somebody or to go regulate an entire district, that's not what we do anyways. We're complaint driven. Is that correct?
That is correct. It's complaint driven unless someone sees a very clear safety violation, and then there would be an opportunity for take immediate action against that.
Thank you.
Okay, please continue. Remember, I asked you. Okay. Okay.
All right. So this is a list of things that a city cannot do. This is reflected again in the agenda report that we provided to the council. You can't require that they operate within a specific area. You can't say sidewalk vendors are only limited to our C1 zone district, for example. We can't require that they get permission from a neighboring business or entity, a restaurant. I think it goes to your questions earlier, Councilmember Tovar. We can't prevent them from operating in public parks unless we have some type of concession agreement with another entity that has restrictive rights to use that park. We can't restrict the number of sidewalk vendors unless, again, it is necessary to protect the public health, safety, and welfare. As I mentioned a little bit ago in your...
I'm sorry, we're going to give you a different mic because it's hard to hear.
You're not that tall.
All right, mic'd up and ready to go?
Oh, that's much
Is that better?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Wow. Sorry we didn't do that from the beginning.
That's all right.
Okay.
As I mentioned earlier, with the agenda report that we provided to the City Council does have a number of conditions or requirements that can be applied to sidewalk vendors. I'm not going to go through that list right now. Just know that if you've taken a look at it, you can let us know whether you think a condition or a requirement is appropriate, needs some modifications, or if there are other things that should be added to that list. And these would all be incorporated into an ordinance or resolution that we bring back to Council for consideration. We do need to amend our Chapter 16A, which is the mobile vendor regulations, just because we need to make sure there's a distinction between sidewalk vendors and mobile vendors. There are, I think, sections of Chapter 16A that are pretty broad and encompass what we would classify now as sidewalk vendors. And as we talked about a little bit ago, enforcement would need to be on a multi-level approach. We'll need to work closely with our police department along with our code enforcement staff. Given the range of times and locations that sidewalk vendors can operate, I think a kind of a joint enforcement effort would be most appropriate. And we can, based on your feedback, take a look at those and develop some more information to bring back to you to consider. Any questions?
Question here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. You want to go first? Go ahead.
Okay, so Councilmember Armendariz, then Councilmember Marks, then Councilmember Tovar.
Does this include mobile food trucks, or is this limited to standing and mobile as described in the language?
That's a very good question. The rules that we bring back for sidewalk vendors would only apply to sidewalk vendors, those that are walking or have a mobile or stationary cart on the sidewalk, a public path, or in public parks. These rules would not apply to mobile vendors. Our current mobile vending regulations, excuse me, do currently address mobile vending and the need for permitting and requirements for those mobile vendors.
So they're actively mobile vendors, like the folks who sell paletas or ice cream, right? And the little carts, not folks who are stationary.
Well, the sidewalk vendors would cover both mobile and stationary vendors, okay, and cover those that sell goods or food products.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Councilmember Marks.
I know. I think I'm getting more and more confused as you're talking about both mobile and the permanent vendors. When we see them in the residential areas and some of their carts have wheels, is that a permanent one or is that a mobile one?
I would consider that to be a mobile vendor, which would be permitted.
Even though they're there all day long?
In the same place,
in the same place, yes.
You know, I think because the cart is on wheels and can be easily moved, I would still consider that as a mobile vendor. You could give us direction to come up with some time limitations on how long a person with a cart could be in any one location, and we can bring that back in a set of rules and regulations for you.
All right, thank you.
All right, and then it's Councilmember Tovar.
Thank you, Mayor. So, again, just sort of looking this through. So, I did some homework on this because obviously I'm trying to see what we currently have in place here in Gilroy, which is not much. I mean, but calling other cities just to sort of see their take on this, and I think I called 15 different cities, and I think about 13 of them said that they would not allow this, right? And sort of how we currently do things here, they said that obviously that they have process procedures and all that stuff, and which they enforce, but we don't here. So do you know, I mean, again, I don't know if you know this answer, but do you know of other cities that are in line with what we currently have and are allowing sort of?
There are a number of cities like Gilroy that are currently going through a process of developing rules for sidewalk vending. Some of the cities have adopted those rules already. In fact, the conditions that you see in the agenda report were kind of a gleaning of some rules that have been applied in other cities. But the state has really taken away the city's ability to prohibit sidewalk vendors. And it's also decriminalized sidewalk vending. The types of penalties that a city could apply to someone for violating the sidewalk vending rules or not having a sidewalk vending permit are very different than the fines and the types of penalties that can be applied for other violations.
I have another question.
All right, Councilmember Marks.
Since we cannot prohibit sidewalk vending, what happens if there's a vendor who, when he leaves, there's garbage up and down the street, there's grease on the sidewalk? Could that be prohibited? Because I think that's where a lot of our businesses are very upset because of the mess that's left in front of their businesses.
Yeah, I think that goes directly to health and safety concerns. And in the list of conditions, we do have requirements in there, or at least in that draft, requirements that they're required to maintain appropriate and clean environment when they are, for cleaning up both after they've been there and during their duration at a single place, if they're a stationary vendor.
So if someone totally ignores it after being warned, after a couple of times, can that particular vendor be banned?
They can't be banned outright to begin with. There's an escalation of permit fines that get applied. First is $100, and it's an administrative fine. Then it goes to $250, and then it goes up to $500. And if they continue to violate the requirements or the conditions of their permit approval, then the city can revoke their permit, and operating without a permit has a different layer of enforcement and fines.
And if they don't pay
tied to
their
it.
fine, can they still be bending the following week, or is there something in place? Because, I mean, if nothing happens, then what's the point?
Right.
They're just going to keep doing it because they know nothing happens. So
We would hope that they would, with the first fine, bring their violations into line with the requirements of approval. But as you're aware, there are times that folks need another nudge, and I think that our experience in code enforcement, at least my experience in code enforcement over the years, is it's typically that one time that reach out, you tell them what they're doing wrong, and they correct it. If there are continuing violations, we have the ability to revoke the permit and then pursue a different potential enforcement avenue.
Yeah, I know that. Okay, I know that you haven't finished your report yet, but
I'm almost done.
I hope that council members understand there are 22 different suggestions for us to be considering tonight that we can do. And many of them address the very basic things that would come under permitting, licensing, a health department things that have to be prominently displayed so you would know if it's there. And then I think you do. It has to go step by step. You can't just assume somebody's going to ignore the rules when we haven't really made them very clear yet. So that's what we're trying to do, is make those rules clear so that maybe this can all happen in a way that we'll have to see. But yeah, the fines are administrative, but if we have a permit process, that's something that we can regulate that way too. Councilmember Hilton.
Thank you. John, it says in your staff report that that mobile vendors may remain, this is already existing, they may remain in one place for 10 minutes, and then it provides that mobile vendor must move 100 feet before stopping again. That's already...
That's in our rules currently, yes.
Yes, okay.
And so a sidewalk vendor with a new set of rules, actually under the state's rules, is not limited to that restriction.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. This is just sort of a wrap-up for the City Council. Then I'll take some questions, additional questions that all of you have. To move forward and bring the city's process in line with both SB 946 and SB 972, we need to